So, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was written and directed by James Gunn, and it stars Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Bradley Cooper, Vin Diesel, Dave Bautista, Michael Rooker, Karen Gillan, who all reprised the roles from the first movie, as well as a few new faces, including Kurt Russell, Palm Clementif, Elizabeth Debicki, Sylvester Stallone. A whole bunch of new people appear in this movie. This time around, following the events of the first movie, the Guardians of the Galaxy meet Egon. He's a living planet, played by Kurt Russell, who turns out to be Peter's father. And things kind of just come up here and there throughout the entire movie, and we have a new Guardians of the Galaxy movie. So the first movie I thought was a lot of fun, and I was definitely looking forward to see what they were going to do with the next Guardians of the Galaxy movie back when it came out. And I remember I didn't see this movie until the second week of release, and I remember people saying, oh, it's not as good as the first movie, it's just not nearly as fun as the first movie. So I watched it with slightly lower expectations than normal, and I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed a lot of it. I thought it was really funny. I thought the emotional component was there. I thought it was a really good time. Then I liked it so much that I went and saw it in theaters again like 2 weeks later. It's like, yeah, this is still a really good time. I don't understand why people hate this movie as much. When I watched it the third time, not in theaters, but like when Avengers Endgame was coming out, I was going back and rewatching all the Marvel movies. I rewatched it, and I definitely saw a lot of the issues. And I definitely noticed it a lot more rewatching it. And as far as like my rewatching it now to prepare myself for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I still really enjoy this movie. I think personally this is probably the most underrated Marvel movie. I think this is one that I feel like probably gets the most, like, I feel like this movie gets a bad rep. It's not nearly as bad as some other Marvel movies. That doesn't mean it's perfect. I still think it's a lot of fun. So, what works in this movie? A lot of the performances are really good. Chris Pratt, I thought he was really good in this movie. Kurt Russell, I thought he was a really good villain in this movie. He's one of the better villains in this movie because I feel like he gives a really good performance. I think he's really intimidating, and I do think he's evenly matched with a lot of the other characters in this movie. Karen Gillan, I also thought, did a really good job in this movie, too. I didn't really care for her too much in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and then I kind of like what she was kind of like going for in this movie. She's kind of more of an anti-hero this time around, and I do really like her arc throughout the entire MCU, and I'm really curious to see what they'll do with her character in the third one. Bradley Cooper and Zoe Saldana, pretty much everyone in this movie is really good in this movie. Palm Clementif, who plays Mantis, I thought she did a really good job. She was pretty funny throughout the movie as well. Dave Bautista is funny, but he's also kind of annoying at times too. There are some jokes in this movie that kind of don't work for me, and I also felt Drax's joke about Mantis and how she looks just got tiring after a while. Like, how many times can you just do that joke? It's like every time they interact, that's the same joke. But, Dave Bautista, I still think he does a good job overall, just when he's not making the same joke over and over again. Michael Rooker, I thought he was better here than he was in the first movie. I think because of, what happens at the end of the movie. If spoilers for a movie that came out 6 years ago, Yondu sacrifices himself to save Peter. And I do think it's actually a really good performance. He actually gets a lot more to do in this movie. He has that great sequence with the arrow and how he's controlling it on a ship and come a little closer is playing. That was a really fun moment. He was really good in it. And also Sean Gunn, who also appears in this movie. He's James Gunn's brother. He does a really good job, and he does feel natural with the rest of it. It's not just like a walk-on, hey, you're my brother, why don't you do this movie for me? His performance is really good. I actually really like his interactions with the rest of the cast, and I do think he's a nice fit for the rest of the team. I also really like the darker tone and the more emotional components of this movie. Like, while the first movie was definitely just fun throughout, this one kind of takes a lot more, there's a lot more emotion to it this time around. You definitely feel a lot more for the Guardians of the Galaxy this time around. And I do think the bigger surprises in this movie are really well done. How Yondu's death is handled, that's really well done. Basically, the entire third act, when the whole movie kind of changes its tone, it's actually really well done. But that doesn't mean it isn't funny. It is incredibly funny throughout. There were so many moments where I was laughing, and I was just like, I don't think it's as funny as the first one, but I definitely think I did laugh a lot through this in the movie, so I'm like, I think it's fun enough. Also, the production values and the visuals are also really good. I think the production values are a lot better here than they were in the first movie. Visuals, there are so many great visuals in this movie. Kind of just like, I kind of want to explore a lot of these worlds, like the planet, Egon's planet. I thought that was really well done. Like, I want to explore that. Want to explore like the area where Yondu is meeting up with Sylvester Stallone's character. I kind of want to explore that too. Who were the aliens at the beginning of the movie, who were they ask Guardians of the Galaxy for help and they wind up backstabbing them accidentally. I kind of want to explore their world too. That is also really well done. The soundtrack too, I also thought was really good as well. Again, not quite as good as the first movie, but I do think the soundtrack is really good as well. They have some really great songs in there. Come a little closer. What else? They have Father and Son by Cat Stevens. Although my main gripe about the soundtrack is that they use The Chain by Fleetwood Mac twice. And while they're fine scenes overall, it just kind of felt annoying to me that you would use the same song twice in a movie like this and not have like any reason why to do it other than we already used it once. Great scenes and all, but I kind of just wish they kind of picked a different song at some point. Is there something about the movie I don't like? There's a lot of this movie that I kind of don't like. There are some jokes that kind of just fall flat in this movie. Again, Drax's reoccurring joke where he makes fun of Mantis and how she looks, not really that funny when you just do it over and over again. Also, this movie kind of pushes the envelope. It's James Gunn, so, that's not really surprising. But it kind of pushes the envelope enough for a Disney movie at the time. They kind of have jokes about vomiting. There's a joke about the sides of someone's... Anyway, there's also a joke about a toe getting cut off. There's so many jokes where I'm like, you're really pushing the envelope here, aren't you? For a movie that will likely, entice a lot of families to go see it. It's kind of pushing it. There's also like subplots about the villains from the movie where it just kind of doesn't work. There's like a whole thing where Sylvester Stallone's kind of brought in, and he's barely in the movie. Honestly, he could have been cut out from this whole movie and it would have been fine. There's this whole like the golden race of aliens or whatever. Their whole subplot just didn't matter to me. I kind of forgot about it for the most part until they reappeared again in the finale. And I just feel like it definitely tried to go bigger with so many more villains, and it kind of just didn't work overall. I mean, Kurt Russell was already a pretty good villain as it is, so I have all these extra villains. And there were so many times where they kind of skip over a lot of the action scenes. Like the opening credits, admittedly, while it's fun, you have Baby Groot just dancing around to, Mr. Blue Sky and all that. I kind of want to see more of the action that's actually going on in the background, because I feel like that would be more entertaining. And also, there's that scene you kind of see in the trailer where Rocket is telling Groot, hey, this is how you detonate a bomb. This is where you should do it. And Groot kind of gets it all confused and such. It's a funny scene and all, but there's like a moment where Peter's like asking everyone, hey, do you have tape? Do you have tape for the bomb? Nobody has tape. Like, there's no action. You don't really see the action going on, and I kind of want to see the action. And also, admittedly, some of the CGI doesn't work, particularly in the third act, where it's like when it's in the background, it's great, and you can definitely like explore the world a lot more. When it's like right in front of you, maybe it's not so great. Like Kurt Russell's face at the end of the movie, it did not look great. But I still think this is a decent movie in the MCU. I think it may be one that gets it gets too much of a bad rep. I do think the performances are pretty good. Admittedly, I think a lot of things in this movie do improve from the original movie. Like the performances are pretty good. The tonal shifts are actually decent this time around. And while and the visuals themselves are also decent for the most part, I would say mostly better than the original. But it's not as funny as the first movie. The soundtrack isn't as great. And I just feel like the script could have used a little bit less of the villains. And I feel like some of the jokes were a bit too much at times, and I kind of wish we saw a little bit more action, a little bit less CGI at times, but I still think this is a good time. I will give Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 3 out of 4 stars. See it. So, what do you think is the most underrated movie in the MCU? Comment down below, subscribe to the channel. This is Pat. Stay safe.